Opinions and stories around the game we love, told by your favorite storytellers. Stay up to date with all things cricket. Subscribe to Cricbuzz's YouTube channel and press that bell icon now.
Over a career that spanned so long, that's produced some fabulous innings, how do you pick 5 for Virat Kohli? It's not been easy, and that's a good sign in itself. If it's not easy, it means there have been so many to pick from, but I'll try. I've picked 5. I've picked them in no particular order because it's very difficult amongst them to say, is that number 2, is that number 4? Just enjoy the 5 that I've picked almost in equal measure. But before I get to the 5, there's 3 or 4 others that, what do they call it? The honourable mentions that I want to talk about. There was one match, 2 innings at the start of his career, and that came at Perth in 2011. Should he be in? Should he not be in? He was under a little bit of pressure. He made 44 in the first innings, 75 in the second. And then, of course, he went to Adelaide. He got 100. And that was the beginning of the making of Virat Kohli. So I thought I'd mention those, as I said, in honourable mentions, the 2 innings in Perth and then that 100 in Adelaide. Then there was a test match in Johannesburg. It was a spiteful, angry, vicious wicket. And Virat Kohli had won the toss and chosen to bat. He's made 54 and 41. You might say, over a career that's seen so many thousands of runs, what's a 54 and 41? It's interesting, Sunil Gavaskar also rated some of his 50s above many of his 100s because of the challenge that it involved. And that is one of the things you look at, the challenge, the situation, how did everybody else play when you pick these innings? And that's why in innings like, say, the 254 that he made in Pune against South Africa, you just look at that and say, yeah, but he made it look so easy, like so many of Tendulkar's 100s. There wasn't the feeling of having overcome something, so it was tough to put that in. And as a result, these are the 5 that I have come up with. The first one will be in everybody's shortlist. Most times these lists are different, but this, I presume, will be in everybody's shortlist. And that was the second innings century, 141 at Adelaide in 2014. He's captain for that series, and his approach is, whatever Australia set us, we will go and get those. And his batting against Nathan Lyon, but especially his batting against Mitchell Johnson, who was bowling fast, furious, was wonderful. That back foot play, he was pulling through the onside, but just the audacity of going for that run chase. And in Australia and around the world, they looked up and said, wow, we knew this kid could play, but this is something special. Remember, he'd come out of that terrible series against England where he made 130 runs. So he had to prove himself here. So given all that, oh, this will occupy a very, very important place. Then, in spite of so many in between, I'm going 2018. If you're a Kohli fan, it was a year from gods for Kohli. He played 3 innings in that year in 2018, which for a lot of people, one would have been the highlight of that career. And I picked all 3 of those because they were just simply special. The first of those came at Centurion. He made 153 in 217 balls. He'd come in at 28 for 2, with South Africa having made 335. He was up against an attack. That's Rabada, Moko, Philander, and Ngidi. Now, those 4 in those conditions is a formidable score. The next best was 46. There wasn't a half century. Just told you that he was playing the situation very differently from anybody else. That's been a feature of a lot of Virat Kohli innings, that he's made a lot of runs and there hasn't been a second score in the vicinity of that. So that was start of the year, 2018 in Centurion. Then you go middle of the year, the first test match in England at Birmingham after 2014. Now, by now, Virat Kohli is this great player and everyone's saying, right, is Anderson going to get the better of him again? And he makes that 100 in Birmingham. It was a fantastic innings and it told us, look, he's made the adjustment and he's come good. So there at Birmingham, he made 149. He came in at 54 for 2. It became 100 for 5 thereafter. And then with the last wicket, he put on 57. Umesh Yadav made just 1. But more than the numbers around the innings was the fact that this was the innings that told England, I will come here and score runs. He made 590 runs, I think, in that series. Then towards the end of the year, it's an innings that's not talked about very much because of all that he's done in Australia over the years. But this came in Perth. And Australia again playing 4 fast bowlers, very good attack. Australia's batting wasn't great, but the bowling was brilliant. And this is what he did in Perth. He made 123 after Australia had made 326, but he came in at 8 for 2. And that was the new Optus Stadium in Perth. The ball was doing things. Australia wanted to show off. They'd lost the first test that they were there, and he made 123. The next best was 51. Another example, as I said, of Virat Kohli dominating more than any other. So I picked those three from that one fabulous year in 2018. Then I'm going back and saying, right, which was the fifth in this garland of centuries? Came in 2013 in Johannesburg. He made 119. Now look at what's happening around that innings. There's no Tendulkar, he's finished. There's no Dravid, there's no Lakshman. India's top six for that game was Murli Vijay, Shikhar Dhawan, Cheteshwar Pujara, Virat Kohli, Ajinkya Rahane, Rohit Sharma. None of whom has really established himself and said, right, I am this fabulous player. Everybody's looking to tomorrow. It's changing times in India's middle order. And there Virat Kohli went and got that 100. And I thought that sort of told everybody that Virat Kohli is this special player. He played lots of innings like this, but I just thought that innings just suggested he was a special player. He also made 96 in the second innings. Remember, he's still a very young player. He started in 2009-10. He then made 96 in the second innings, and wow, fantastic. So those are the 5 innings that I thought symbolized what Virat Kohli was all about. You'll notice something interesting. India didn't win a lot of those matches. And that just tells you that so many times the conditions were very difficult, and that he was the one player who was able to overcome those conditions. Wow, Kohli in his peak. I'm just hoping that before Virat Kohli finishes, he plays a couple more innings, at least just a couple more innings. That'll take 2 of these out, and those 2 come into that list. Wow, won't that be fantastic?